Well, hi, I'm Ana Jimena Sanchez Perez, and I'm gonna represent the international organizations during this debate.
Hi, my name is Ariana Snyder, and I will be representing the Mexican government in this debate.
Hi, my name is Victor Cadenas, and I'll be representing the indigenous communities in this debate.
In this debate, we will be covering the question of how should a modern state be configured in order to ensure the integration of cultural diversity and creation of a real climate of equality and equity. Let's begin.
So first of all, according to what you have researched on your position, what do you think, or what do you consider it would be the best strategy to reach this equality for a more cultural diversity environment around the world?
Of course, the Mexican government have made a mistake in the San Andres Treaty with the EZLN, or the Zapatistas, in other words, where they had a mutual session where they had to agree on certain terms. But unfortunately, the Mexican government did not keep up their end of the bargain, because during that time in 1994, Mexico was really looking forward to neoliberalism and to make sure that other countries saw Mexico as a developing country. So in that year, they were signed in the TMIC, and they were included in the OECD, or the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. But right now, the Mexican government has done other efforts to include more indigenous people in more political processes.
Well, from the point of view of the UN, and talking about the international organizations, the UN thinks that intercultural integration is an indispensable component for reducing poverty and achieving the goal of sustainable development. And throughout a resolution of 57 out of 249, they aim to provide an opportunity for mobilization of governments, legislators, civil society organizations, and the community to promote cultural in all its diversity and forms, in tangible or intangible heritage, creative industries, or even goods and services. And this in order to understand the value of the cultural diversity and improve its coexistence, which means that the UN considers that cultural diversity is a driving force for development. And it's not only in terms of economic growth, but also as a means to achieve a more intellectual and emotional and moral enriching life.
From this perspective, at least, it is good to have official regulations that promote cultural diversity. However, creating an extensive system that is backed up by evidence and it should work in theory is only being set up for failure if it doesn't do something about the actual population. I think racism towards indigenous communities is something that happens from within and is perpetuated every day by citizens. Everyday children are being thought to look down on indigenous people by their own parents, and it's a cycle that it's extremely hard to break. So what I'm getting at, it's there needs to be some sort of education or spreading of accurate information in order for people to better understand the scale of what these communities go through on a daily basis and what their struggles really are. Yeah. Most people like to just speak up and saying what the indigenous communities need without actually looking for some information or knowing what these people go through. So there's this phrase that says nothing about us without us, which is exactly what I'm getting at here. I think so. The premise of what I'm saying is there needs to be, again, a spreading of accurate information and education all the way through children until they grow up.
So perhaps a strategy that the Mexican government and the indigenous communities can work here is that we can have actual information from actual people that are indigenous and have lived in those conditions every single day, so that those people are the ones that get to choose and pick the information that they want to share with the rest of the country, to share their culture, their values, other perhaps maybe food, heritage, and their customs, and maybe also a little bit about their history and how they live, so that both people that live in cities and urban areas know how these people live and know to embrace the diversity that there is in Mexico.
Exactly. And okay, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to ask, like, from your point of views and what you represent, we understand that having a more diverse society will include like a more richer diversity, and it kind of has opened the path to frictions, and how would you make sure like to avoid that these frictions become conflicts within the same society? Like, what would you do?
Well, first of all, going back to the previous mistake that the Mexican government did in 1994, it would definitely be to have strong enough laws that have already started to develop from that point. Because as we can remember, the Mexican government did not keep their promise to the indigenous people. So definitely a good strategy would be to keep having those laws and make sure that they are being respected in every single level of society, from the top of the government pyramid to the very bottom with the citizens.
Well, if I may speak, I would suggest that, well, with these kind of situations, it requires like an intercultural competence, and that all the public service officials have the cultural methods or knowledge to be part of this and allow different perspectives to be recognized throughout dialogue based on equality. And for this, I believe there should be public procurement that make sure this competence of the public services allows better communication and an efficient communication in order to see the different perspectives of the sides that are in the discussion.
I agree. There needs to be a lot of communication, and I think most importantly, transparency, which is, I think it's essential, mainly because the laws are good, the regulations are good. In theory, they should work, but the reality of it is Mexico is a very corrupt country, and their own methods of anti-corruption are not working how they should. So I think transparency in the end is what would make, in theory, I mean, a little more chances of success at this, mainly.
Yeah. And for example, going back to what you said about education, well, there has been actually a range of studies that demonstrate that cities which include more intercultural integration have like better outcomes in terms of the residents' perceptions of cohesion and the trust of in the administration and safety and quality services and good governance and economic growth and many other advantages that would benefit if different countries accepted to incorporate a cultural integration and help like national level policies to achieve this inclusive direction in culture.
Yeah, perhaps another way that intercultural societies can be done is with proper representation of the cultures of indigenous people, because it sometimes happens very often that, yes, Mexico as a whole tries to place indigenous people as a part of their history and their patrimony. Nevertheless, it usually happens that they have them in a crystal box, like as if they were something really sacred and that they're not allowed to be outside of there, and the people from the outside are not allowed to like interfere with their lifestyle. But maybe also like some exposure of indigenous people in urban areas would be a good idea. And to know that this is a very difficult position, because at the moment indigenous communities are in a disadvantage. They're a minority in Mexico because they don't speak. Some of them don't speak Spanish. Some of them have lower levels of education because they live so far away from a city. So it's really important here to also have a balance, not only for people in cities to know that indigenous people are there and that their culture should be something embraced, but also for indigenous people to know or to not have such a huge disadvantage. And this is also a whole other topic, making sure that we have a society which is equal in education, that gives people both in cities and in rural areas the same education and access to services that makes them thrive.
Yeah, there's actually one organization, it's called International Cultural Diversity Organization, which tries or aims to close the cultural gap between people throughout many research and workshops and social events to actually prove that there are more development projects in which they can participate and promote the cultural diversity. And I found this one phrase that I like the most, which says, diversity is the art of thinking independently together. And with this, they create a tons of activities in which they include like trainings, panel of discussions, conferences, art exhibitions, workshops, festivals, and many other events in which they include their research and their data collection in order to even certificate people about this knowledge and culture. And well, raise awareness throughout social development projects and many other activities like fundraising campaigns. And this, well, helps monitor like the governments and what they are doing in terms of culture and how it affects the society, and how you can be part of this with more knowledge and well, the promotion of different kinds of diversity.
That's interesting. However, I think this spreading of information and the education should go beyond embracing the culture or showing people how indigenous communities live on a daily basis. I think it should also focus on the fact that it's close to systematic racism, which is something that we see many countries going through, and it goes beyond people looking down on indigenous community. It's a whole system that sadly affects the day-to-day of many people, and at the end of the day, it doesn't it leaves them with little to no chance of success, which is something that everyone hates. So I think this information should go way beyond the embracing of culture.
Yeah, well, in terms of more than just the approach of culture, there's also the ESDs proposed by the UNICEF, and in which they talk about education for sustainable development. And this is completely related to the appropriation of culture and how culture influences how the next generation views their culture and their valued skills and ethics and languages, and how this can lead to the promotion of their culture and the preservance of it through the knowledge and education of this sustainable development for individuals.
Yeah, well, also about that, I agree completely with Victor, because this problem, it goes way beyond just embracing a culture. It's a whole system, and it's about breaking the system, which is probably the hardest part, because many people are already living in that system, even people in cities that since they were little, they were educated to look down on people of color or look down on people in general. Yeah. So perhaps maybe a way to make sure that indigenous people they already have a place in society, but to have a place higher than to just be a culture and touristic attraction would definitely be, for example, laws that protect their tangible and intangible patrimony, such as, for example, art, patterns, dresses, because every day we see companies like Zara, Shein, and others copy their designs and everything. Definitely education from all levels of society. Mm-hmm. And well, yeah, that's.
I would also suggest. I'm sorry.
No, continue, please.
I would also suggest like making sure that institutions are culturally competent, so that they are receptive to the innovation and diversity, and regarding to cultural conflict, they have the knowledge and the tools to face it, but also like to go beyond, as you said, the classical approach of diversity and anti-discrimination, and so that you can actually share the power between the people of different backgrounds and different cultures, and make them participate through public institutions and civil movements, and actually have a voice and be heard. Not only make sure that they are heard, not only their words are just there and existing.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly that. There needs to be an address for the real problem, which is the real problem isn't that people are forgetting their heritage. That does not happening. What's happening is that the indigenous communities are currently being oppressed by, in many ways, in many aspects, including misinformation, racism, cultural appropriation, and eventually the financial exploitation, right? So mm-hmm. I think there needs to be, again, a widespread of information about the actual problem. And like Ariana said, that's right, the indigenous community have the right to maintain, control, and eventually protect their intellectual property, protect cultural heritage. So yeah, it's good.
To sum up, we would say that, first of all, one of the most important aspects to consider in this to solve this problematic would be, first of all, education, and then also like the approach that governments and institutions have through cultural and diversity. And would you like to add anything else?
Yes, definitely the representation of these cultures in society, not only as the cultures that we know and see in our history books, but like as the people that they are existing right now.
Okay. Well,
well, I guess that's it for the video. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.